As an author, it can be so hard to make sense of the numbers you have. Are your sales numbers good? How about your social media numbers? You see folks who make money at this and are often left to wonder, how? How much do they really make? Well, on Page Numbers, author Bob McGough pulls back the curtain by interviewing authors at every stage of their career to find out the truth behind the numbers, and hopefully along the way, show you ways to grow your own little author empire. Welcome to Page Numbers. All right. I am Bob of Tales by Bob. Y'all have seen me on here on Go Indie Now a number of times over the years, and you may also know me from the books I write or the podcasts I do. And one of the podcasts I do is Book Spirits Booze, and I do that with my awesome, super long-term friend. Probably 20 years now.
Getting that way.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Derek, who is also a co-host on Book Spirits Booze and does just a lot of stuff with me. So this is Page Numbers. I am an author who is super huge on transparency, and I'm trying to bring that transparency to as many people as possible, just trying to get the word out there. And on Page Numbers, each episode, I'm going to interview a different author or creative to talk about the nitty-gritty, about the numbers behind what they do. The theory being that if you can look at someone and see, hey, you know what, I think I'm kind of doing the same things that they're doing. Maybe I could look and see how many sales that they've had and see, hey, am I doing good? Am I not doing as good as them? And not to be like super down on yourself, but just to say, hey, you know, me and this guy have been selling books for 5 years and he sells 3 times as many books as me. What's he doing different? What can I learn from him? That type of stuff. But I think it would be super, just really, I don't know, trashy, I guess. Or not trashy, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a poor move if we don't start by me talking about my numbers. I feel like I should take that
Totally
first step.
fair.
Yeah, I need to take that first step and be super transparent with everyone. And then that way, when I'm asking all these people all these questions, no one's like, well, why hasn't Bob shared his? Okay, so I brought on Derek to be me for an episode and to ask me a bunch of questions about transparency and my numbers. So, Derek.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask him a whole bunch of questions, kind of the general layout of how Bob wants us to work in the future, and then we're just kind of going to spitball it, discuss it, and see kind of where the conversation takes us. And I'll be interested to hear about a lot of this stuff because me and Bob have talked about this kind of thing vaguely, but to be perfectly honest, as much as we talk about it, I feel weird about asking about his numbers. So this is actually pretty interesting for me too. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
So let's just start this off with like kind of your journey, kind of like how long you've been a creator, kind of the number of publications that the number of things you've published, or how many publications you've been in. Just kind of give us a general landscape view of what you've been doing.
So I started seriously considering a career as an author in 2012, and it's 2025 now. So when I started in 2012, I set a 10-year goal to be doing this full time. So didn't quite make that. But I will say that it wasn't really until 2019, I guess, that I really started to take this super seriously. Started spending a decent chunk of money on hiring editors and things of that nature. So I actually started out early on writing short stories that I submitted to anthologies, and pretty quickly realized that you can't make any money doing that. Shocking. So I sat down to write my first novel. It took 2 months, 2 years apart, to finish draft 1 of it, and I started shopping it around. Didn't really get anywhere. 2019, I went to Dragon Con. I was mentored by a man named John Hartness, who basically advised me, hey, you should start self-publishing. And I did. I was off to the races. COVID hit, and it was one of those, I'm just sitting at home, bubbled up. If I wasn't going to do it then, when was I going to do it? So since then, I have published 8 books. Um, 6 books in a series about a redneck wizard, their urban fantasy, a standalone collection of short stories and novellas set in that same universe, and then a book called Create Greater Freedom, which is kind of a self-help book for creatives where the core message is if you're creative, that's cool, that's fantastic. There are billions of creative people. If you want to become a success, however you define success, you're going to have to figure out how to use that creativity to get noticed. So that book came out last year, 2024, and I now have a book deal with Falstaff Books. They will be publishing that novel I mentioned earlier in 2025. It's looking like August.
Just out of curiosity, what made you end up deciding to change over from your focus on short stories to novellas and then novels? Kind of.
Yeah, it really was. It really was about the money. Honestly,
Was that really what it
it
was?
really was. I actually prefer to write short stories and novellas. Like that's my preferred length. I don't really enjoy writing novel length works. I much prefer shorter things because I have writing ADD. Derek, who's played role playing games with me for many years, has been on the brutal end of this. Um, and so, but seriously, there was zero money in short stories, and uh, at the time when I was first starting out, um, I defined success as doing this for a living, and I could see the amount of money I was getting paid for short stories, which frequently was $10 and a copy of the book, or I got a royalty check for $4.13 off of one. It was a pittance, and so I was like, well, look, I want to do this for a living. I want to be the next. I knew I was not going to be the next Stephen King, but I was like, I want to be the next small dude that is, doing this full time. And
Well,
so,
who
yeah,
who is that person though? Who's the person that like if everything worked the way you wanted it, who's the person that you would aspire to be?
Glenn Cook.
That's what I knew. Which
He
makes sense because he writes about different stuff too. He's got different.
Yeah, he does. He's written, he kind of started grim dark fantasy. He's written, uh, fantasy based urban fantasy, like second world urban fantasy, I guess is what you'd call it. Um, and he's written in a variety of genres and does this for a living. Um, and he wears Hawaiian shirts. So, which
That's really
is
what's important.
yeah, that's the real thing. That's the most important thing. So, for a living, he writes books and wears Hawaiian shirts. That's the dream. But it's one of those, while doing that, I still kind of had to be me. Like if my only goal was to just make money doing this, I would not have started with a horror novel. That's for
Right.
sure.
Hmm.
Um, Horror is a hard genre to make a livable wage at. I would have picked paranormal romance or just romance. Like really, if I wanted to make a
Romance in
living,
general. Yeah.
yeah, I would have just written romance. Gosh, if I had written romantasy, started writing that a couple years back, whew,
Where
I'd
would
be
you be now?
doing this full time and writing stuff I hate.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think that's what the important thing is. Is there's always things that we like, and then there's the direction of the actual what people actually want to read, and you just got to figure out a way to kind of merge them together. And I feel like you're down the road of figuring out how to make that work for you. So
Hmm, I'm
that's kind of
trying.
where we're at. But
Yeah.
speaking of down the road of that, so let's talk about some numbers a little bit. So like, just I guess in a broad sense, how much have you made doing this
Oh,
so
okay.
far?
So I have my spreadsheet open here, and for those who don't know, um, I have a spreadsheet that runs my author life. I have a tab for everything. Um, I track. Oh gosh, the things I track. Um, so let me open my tab for how much money I have made year over year. So I started tracking in 2020 is when I started. I consider 2020 the time that financially. All right. Well, technically, I was making money before 2020, but it was at that point it was really just all freelance money off Fiverr. 2020 is when I started a project I called 365 to 1K. And my goal was within a year, I would be making $1,000 a month doing this. I did not hit that goal.
Hey, you have to have a goal to know what you're shooting at. So,
Exactly. And so I started that project in 2020. It was not until 2024 that I've got to the point where I average at least $1,000 a month. My monthly average for 2024 was $1,027.02. So, and that's with my December, I only made like $280, but then my September, I made like $2,400. Anywho, so since 2020, when I started tracking religiously all my numbers, I've made just over $31,000 doing this.
and so is this like how much you have left, or is this not including the money that has also gone out the door? Like, how does that work?
So this is how much I have earned, and to be clear, that's not just off books. I have RPGs. I have T-shirts on it, like print on demand T-shirts. I have a affiliate link through Amazon. So a lot of these are just little dribs and drabs, you know. Early on, I included the money I earned off Fiverr on there, but as that eventually that wound down and I was no longer doing Fiverr, so that money is not there anymore. But like I occasionally get appearance fees, either like to teach a workshop, or I had a convention pay me like $250 to be the guest of honor there, things like that. So that's all the money that comes in the door.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's been 31,000. My bank account, my business bank account right now has I think a little over $3,000 in it. So pretty much all of it has gone right back into the business.
Right back into it, right?
Yeah. And a lot of it is so first off, I got to reorder books. You know, if I sell books, I got to order new books, so that's a big expense. But my and I will admit, I had not really done a good job of tracking expenses. That was like my big. I felt like my big weakness in my transparency was I was showing the money I was making without showing the
how much you were investing it back into yourself.
Yeah. So but this year I did a thing where for 2024 I tracked all my expenses. And so my total expenses for 2024 were $11,871, and I earned $12,385. So I really only profited about $500 last year. And so where that money went was like reordering books was like $3,600 right there. I spent like $600 on podcasting equipment. If you see me glancing over, it's because my laptop that I use for podcasting, I bought a second screen that can attach to it, so I can do this. So stuff like that. I bought this microphone headset thing.
But one-time purchases that will enable you to do more things for your little kingdom.
Yeah. And then my biggest expense though was event expenses. I spent a little over $4,000 on that, and that is mostly hotel fees, like hotel rooms, and table fees at conventions. If I'm setting up to sell at a con, I did a con 2 weekends ago. It cost me $125 for the table, but that's on the cheap side for conventions. A lot of these conventions, a table could be $400. A table could be $1,000. I participate in a booth at Dragon Con that I think it's over $2,000 for our booth at Dragon, and I pay a percentage of that. So that's where my money goes. So right now I'm very much because this isn't my day job, I pretty much sink it all right back in. And some of it is like, as I do it, it's like, oh, that was a good buy. And then some of it is like, long term, that was not a good buy, you know?
Well, you're learning where your money should be spent so that you know what to do and not do in the future. So it's
Yeah,
useful.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. So it's stuff like I frequently buy stuff for my table at conventions to like
To
try
see what
out.
sells.
Yeah, to like try out to see like, oh, does this configuration help me sell
Oh,
books?
I see what you're saying.
But but it can also be like I spent money last year. I bought a bunch of dice because I
Mm,
sell RPGs. I was like, I'll have dice as like a little cheap add-on, and
mhm.
people did not buy them. So
Oh,
that money was, and like for one of those deals, it's one of those for the amount that I was selling them, it was not worth it for the space it took in my tote. Like this kind of thing here, this is what I take to conventions. If I was using half a drawer to hold dice, and I only sold $1's worth of dice at a convention, that's a poor use of space. That space
just
is
wasn't
better.
cost effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I ended up giving all those dice to my kiddo. So
Yeah.
she was quite happy. But that was kind of wasted money. But where I'm at is I'm in this good space that I don't need this money to live. I All this money can go right back into it as long as I have money in the bank so that I can pay for like editing expenses. Really, anything else I can kind of blow it on experiments, and sometimes the
Hmm.
experiments work and sometimes they don't. Um, but at this point, it's kind of I'm taking a multi-year project of experimentation to see what works best. And fortunately, I have the money to do it. But yeah, most years my biggest expense is editing. That's where a lot. I didn't have much in the way of editing expenses in 2024, but in previous years I've spent thousands of dollars on editing, and that's where a lot. Like it's like, oh wow, Bob, you blew $31,000. You blew like $28,000 on your business. What do you have to show for it? A fancy, um,
Professionally edited books.
yeah, and that's it. Professionally edited books. Like it was an investment in. A lot of it was an investment in getting books to a sellable state. So
You this when you are paying for professionally edited books. I mean, obvious. I would assume the answer is yes. But do you feel like you get what you pay for when it comes to professional editing?
yeah, yeah, I do. It's one of those. If I was writing different books, I might would have paid for different editing. Um,
Hmm.
and at this point, I'm lucky that enough of my books have gotten out there and people like them. That so for I don't hire a developmental editor. I never have. I didn't have the money when I started, and now that I have the money, enough people have liked my books and like how I structure my books that I haven't felt the need to start hiring a developmental editor. Um, I'm really hiring an editor largely for editing, for just proofreading. That's my main thing. I need a proofreader, but the editor I hire, she does proofreading, but she also does some line editing. She will occasionally go in and be like, "Hey, look, this is worded a little weirdly. I think you should tweak this, that kind of stuff."
What percentage of the money that you're getting in from sales? What is it from in person royalties or whatever? How does that break down?
Um, Most months at this point, in-person sales is where the bulk of my money comes in. I know that there are a lot of folks that are really good at online sales. And I will say that I am in a better place on online sales than a lot of authors I talk with. I know some of the authors I talk with, they sell one or two books a month on there. At this point, uh, any month that I don't have a book launch, I make between $100 and $200 online in sales. A lot of that will be like Kindle Unlimited page reads, stuff like that. I might sell 10, 12 books in a month. Every so often, I'll have like a weird little odd spurt where I sell like $100 over 2 days, and I have no idea why. No idea why. The bulk of my money comes from doing in-person events. So, just for example, this year, um, January is the only complete month. I made $184 selling books online, but I made $1,905 selling books in person. And I will say though that the $184 is there's no, there's all those books have been paid for. I've already earned my money back on those. All my books have covered cost at this point. So I don't, that's all profit. That $1,900 that I made, that's how much came in. But uh, I think, if I remember correctly, so that came from two events. I did Fan Expo New Orleans and I did Chattacon. Both of those events I made around $500. So, $1,900 came in the door, but, really after I deducted hotel room and travel and table fee, I made about $1,000 off that. But for the month, it was like I made $1,900 on in-person sales. My monthly total was $2,200. So you can see that's where the bulk of my money came in. But then, I got $100 fee from teaching the workshop online. I made like 12, $13 selling t-shirts. I made $10 off my affiliate link. I didn't make any money off my RPGs. Uh, Not online, at least. I did sell a decent number at events, and then like my Patreon, I earned like $35. So, yeah.
So when you're selling things on site, how often do you sell your RPG stuff? How often do you sell your books? How many books in general have you sold so far?
So it really, really, really varies event to event. There's no,
Rhyme or
uh,
reason?
yeah, or if there is, I haven't fully unlocked it. There are events I can give guesses. Um, Chattacon, I sold very, very, very few RPGs, very few. But Fan Expo NOLA, I sold a ton. And I think it kind of has to do with the age of the crowd. Chattacon, the crowd skews older. Fan Expo NOLA, the crowd skewed younger. And these are still somewhat early days for me selling these zines. Just as a point of reference, the zines look like this. So they're 20-page zines. Just it's everything you need to play the game except for the dice. So it's a self-contained game, and younger folks seem to really dig it. Older folks, I think, when I get sales to older folks, they're people like me that are basically collectors that we just buy every game we come across.
Anything
with
that looks cool, they're like, I want that.
Yeah, with no real expectation we'll ever play it. But because a lot of older players are a little bit more set in their ways. They've got their group, they're going to play the games that they've always played. They may be, a D&D group that's not as open to trying other stuff. So online, I have sold 3,451 books, and in person, I've sold 816. But that does not count January or February. That is through December 31st of 2024. So that total is where it is 4,267 books sold.
Mm-hmm.
That does not count Kindle Unlimited page reads. So I kind of did the math, and obviously you have some people who don't finish the book, but if you took my total number of page reads, which at the time of this was around 370,000 page reads, that would equate to, if those page reads broke out by book,
Yeah.
it would be another almost 1,300 books. So
you've sold more online than you have in person?
yes.
As of
Yes.
now, is that because you haven't been, the entire time you've been doing this, you haven't been hitting the cons as hard as you have been recently, or is that,
Um,
or is it just something else? Do they normally just sell better on?
well, that's the thing. They sell better online when I do launches. When I do a book launch, I will routinely,
Okay.
I might sell a couple hundred copies of a book.
Is it because you've already got your audience and they're already waiting for it, so they just grab it, and then the ones that you're selling on hand are introducing it to new people, kind of thing? Is that how that?
That is definitely part of it. I have got to the point now where I do have repeat buyers in person, just because there are
Okay.
some conventions that I've now done year on year on year. The thing, I sell more online, but I make a lot more per book in person. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if I if I sell a book online, if they buy a paperback, let's say, I might make maybe $5 on it, maybe,
Mhm.
maybe if I'm lucky. Um, but that book, if I order it from Amazon myself as an author, you can buy author copies at cost. It's like it costs me under $5 a book, and then I sell them now for $20 each. So I make $15 a book that I sell. Most people who buy online, they don't buy physical copies; they buy ebooks. My ebooks
Mhm.
are $2.99, $3.99, and I only get 70% of that after Amazon deducts like a delivery fee first, and then like
Mhm.
basically after Amazon takes their expenses, I get 70% of what's left. So, I'm making, a buck or two off an ebook, versus I sell that print book in person and I just made $15, $16.
Okay.
So that's why the numbers, like, I've sold a lot more online, but I've made a lot more from in
More
person.
money from the. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then also kind of wonkily skewing things is I didn't count these when I say how many books I have, but I have an omnibus edition. I have two of them actually, and each omnibus has 3 books in it. And I sell a ton of that omnibus. In person, that's probably my best seller. Technically, that's 3 books, but I only count it as one because it was only
Right.
one book. But
Mhm.
if I were to break that out, I mean, I've sold probably 150 plus omnibus ones.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you could count that as 450 books if you wanted, but I don't. I just count as one. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So what about social media? What social media platforms do you use?
I'm always changing and I'm always hating them all equally. I just,
Now, I'm sure you hate them differently.
yeah, I do. Well, to be fair, actually, I liked Instagram for a long, long time. I really did. I liked Instagram was my favorite social media because to me, it was what Facebook was. Facebook to me back in the early days was what interested me on Facebook was people posting pictures of what they had going on in their life. And I liked that. That's why I liked Facebook because I could see people that I don't see every day and see what they got going on. And statuses were fine, but I was really there for pictures. I like visuals. If I wanted a status, I would just have them text me. uh, Instagram was that. Instagram is. I get that some people do post memes, but I don't tend to friend people on Instagram who all they do is post memes. So it really is just, oh, it's people posting what they got going on. And I loved that. But the inshitification of the internet continues, and going to Meta, and Instagram now is like for every post I see of someone I'm actually following, I get
Uh,
a, I get a reel that I don't care about, and uh, some page is trying to get me, or some account is trying to get me to follow, and then an ad, um, and I hate it. And they're really good at what they do. So half the time they post up some sort of reel or something, and it sucks me in because they got me dialed in. They know what kind of stuff I like, and oh wow, there's a fucking cat doing some fucking cute cat shit, and I click on it, you know, um, and I hate it. So I have I have tried different ones over the years. I was on X for a while, but I never really got X. I don't think. Like, I mean, I got it, but I didn't really get it. I was never really good at it, and I ended up closing that down. Um, and I did the same for Tumblr. Tumblr, I absolutely did not get. I had a Tumblr for a while. Tumblr was so far beyond. Like, I did not get it. I am not Tumblr's target demographic. So like I closed both of those down over time. Uh, right now, my main ones are my Facebook page. Uh, I have a so for it I have a page. It is Facebook.com/Tells by Bob, a page. I also have a profile on there that I made that is like Bob the author. It's Bob Possum McGough, and that is separate from my actual Facebook. It's like my real Facebook is for my friends and family and folks that I trust to see pictures of my kid, basically. This Bob Possum McGough is I'm always running into folks at conventions and they want to be, they don't follow my page for some reason. They want to follow me. And it's like, hey, follow this page, not my private one. And then I have a Instagram account for Tells by Bob. I have a Facebook group for Tells by Bob. I have a YouTube channel for Tells by Bob. I have an email list. I have a Discord. And I'm dipping my toes into Threads and Blue Sky. I actively don't like Threads, but the good thing about Threads is I can post to Instagram and it'll cross post to Facebook and Threads at the same time. So it's 3 social medias for one post. Blue Sky, I like fractionally better than Threads, but don't actively like, I guess. I wish I could get rid of all of them.
It just doesn't click with you. No, I get it.
Yeah. So, but like, I don't know. Just for the numbers, I've got like 1,000 people on my Facebook page, 700-ish, over 700 on my Instagram. My Facebook group has like 310. My YouTube channel has 130 subscribers. Email list has over 750. Discord has about 60 people in there. Threads has 222. Blue Sky has 156. Yeah, if you total all that up, I have 3,383 followers of some sort, but obviously a lot of those are people who follow me on Facebook and Instagram and are also in the Discord, or they're a YouTube subscriber and in my Facebook group. So there's a lot of overlap. It's not like So yeah, over 3,000 followers across all my social medias. And I love the people and hate the platforms across the board. And then Reddit, but I use Reddit religiously, but that doesn't really have. I have some followers on Reddit, but who the fuck follows people on Reddit? That always befuddles me when I get a follower on there. Most of the people who follow, who are I get from Reddit, they see my comments there. And they follow me back to my website, and then they wind up in my Discord or on Facebook or something like that. Most of them do not follow me on Reddit, but that's actually the social media where I have the best luck marketing. Yeah, best traction. Yeah.
Which was my next question, was about marketing. It's like, have you tried paid marketing, and if so, on which of the platforms?
No, I haven't yet. It's kind of on my to-do list. I want to this year try Facebook ads. Every other month I hear, oh, Facebook ads are great, they're the best. And then the next month it's like, oh, something broke on Facebook ads, they're trash. And then the next month it's like, oh, whatever it was, they fixed it, they're the greatest again. So I know me and my luck, I'll drop some money on it on a bad month. I'm sure the month that the algorithm breaks completely or something. But I do want to start dipping my toes into Facebook ads. But all my marketing is really organic marketing. I go into spaces and I don't just sit there and promote my own books. I try and bring value, whether it be through my transparency project or just educational resources or just whatever, that's kind of my big tip. I teach a class on organic marketing for authors, but my core tip is bring value to the community that you're in, and eventually people will take notice and follow you home. And so, yeah, don't do paid ads yet. Going to try it, but I've had pretty decent return just doing organic stuff. I think about this a lot. If I were to pay myself an hourly wage for all the stuff that I do, I would probably be many, I don't know, $100,000 in the hole now or something. I don't know. If you just factor the time it takes me to write the books, and then you factor in the time it takes me to do all the back end stuff, or time I spend on social media promoting my stuff. If I had all that, if I had just gotten a part-time job, Uh, if I just, instead of writing books, I just went and delivered pizza outside of my normal working hours, I'd probably have come out ahead.
But that's not what you're here for necessarily.
No,
So,
no.
yeah.
And it, it fulfills me. Like
Hmm.
I'm a creative guy. If I wasn't doing this, I would not feel content with my life. So,
Right.
um, there are benefits out there.
Naturally.
Yeah, but yeah, it's perhaps not the most efficient way to earn a buck. Um,
Well, that kind of brings me some of these last few questions. Like,
Yep.
so is this your career or not?
no, not yet. Um, I will say that I know, like, at this when I first the reason I started being so huge on transparency is because when I started out, I didn't know any authors, and no authors were really sharing details with me. I didn't see where people online were posting about what their sales numbers actually were. I had no point of reference. When I launched my first book
Mhm.
and I saw how many it sold, I had no idea. Was this good? Was this bad? Along the way, it kind of clicked for me that one, I am doing better than I would say the majority of authors while being nowhere near close to doing this for a job. Like for this to take the place of my day job. I just ain't there. Um, and I also kind of had the realization that I was, when I first started this, like 10 years to get into doing this full time. Yeah, I can do that. Um, if I had been a smarter guy and had uh, been a little more effective along the way, I would probably have been farther along at 10 years. But I don't
Hmm.
know. For most people, 10 years to doing this full time is a big leap. I saw a post the other day that said that the publishing industry is held up by spousal income. The bulk of writers who are doing this full time, their spouse works as well. It's not an author supporting a family on their income alone. So, you know, I got to the point where I realized doing this full time is going to be harder than I had anticipated.
Hmm.
Well, that's still the dream. It's still the goal. I'm still working towards that. But I was like, all right, so what does success look like if I don't achieve that? And that's why I'm a huge proponent on people defining success for yourself. You may be watching this and like, I have no interest in being a full time author. That would stress me out. I just want to sell some books and know that I'm doing okay at it. And that's perfectly fine.
Hmm.
So for me, what I settled on is what does success look like for me if it's not being a full time author, and it was at least once a year being able to travel anywhere in the world with me, my wife, and kiddo. That we can just fuck off to Bora Bora for 2 weeks if that's what we want once a year, and I can pay for all of it out of my profits. I'm not there yet. I'm getting closer. If I'd quit spending money on dumb shit, um, I'd be even closer still. Um, so that's something that I feel like I can get to that point in a few more years. Like
Hmm.
that's very doable. That is a goal I know I can absolutely achieve. Being a full-time author is still the goal, but it may have to wait till I'm retired, retired from my day job.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, then, so you already kind of know what you're aiming at. So, what's your next
yeah.
move to get you towards that goal?
Oh God. Doing more in-person events, but being more effective with the in-person events I'm doing. So
Hmm.
I I guess being more selective. So I have kind of gotten to a point where I've got some cons that are like my comfort zone, and I go to them year after year, and I will probably keep doing that. But what I've noticed about me is if I do a con one year, I'm going to do it the next year if they'll have me, and because I'm comfortable with it, I know the lay of the land. Um, but what I want to start doing is shaking things up. I have a few cons that I will absolutely do year after year. Dragon Con, I'll do it every year. Conjuration, that'll be my last con of every year. It's in like late November. That's always my final con of the year. Multiverse is my favorite small con to go to. So those three I will do year in year out. But every other con outside of that is my goal is to get to where I have enough of these that I'm kind of rotating them in and out. So, I'm doing Connuga this upcoming weekend. I think by the time this airs, I will be back from Connuga. But I probably won't do Connuga next year. I'll do Pensacon instead.
Mhm.
I kind of have started doing that. If all goes well, I'll have 4 books coming out this year, 4 fiction books, and they're all going to be horror novels. And I don't have any horror currently in print. And so that's going to open me up to new markets, new demographics, new conventions. There's lots of horror cons. I've never done a horror con. So I'm going to start doing those, kind of broadening my reach. And then the last thing is like stepping up my marketing game. Book 1 of the Jubal County Saga. For those who don't know, it was edited by a very delightful British woman who came in and fixed all of my slang, and so I kind of went back in and had to unedit a lot of the book, and because of that, it was my worst edited book. And then I got very lucky to have a dashingly handsome, good friend who sometimes does podcasts with me, may even be on this podcast right now, re-edit the book for me. So, I've got my first, and I got a really awesome blurb from Faith Hunter, who writes the Jane Yellow Rock urban fantasy series. So I've kind of redone all my covers and redone my interiors, re-edited book 1, got some really awesome blurbs from a bunch of authors. And now that my books are like really polished, I'm going to sink a significant amount of time and a little bit of money into kind of more heavily marketing them this year. Like now that I'm like super 100% confident, I've had enough reviews come in that say folks saying they love the books. So I know the words on the inside are good. It was really just getting the outside to match the perceived quality of what's on the inside. So now that is the case, the plan is to try and do a lot of the stuff that I probably should have been doing earlier, like sending it off to book reviewers and book talkers and stuff like that. Just trying to reach my tipping point of get enough word of mouth and it'll hopefully blow up. Mm-hmm. So that's the dream.
Okay.
So those are my next moves. I am super excited about what's going to be going on with page numbers in the months to come. I've got a really good variety of authors from across the career spectrum, I guess you could say, that have agreed to come on and share their numbers. And Go Indie now is just a great platform for this. So Joe Compton was really nice, but a fool perhaps to allow me to do a show on here. So after this one, there's going to be 5 episodes for this season, and then depending on if y'all folks liked it, we'll do another season, and we'll just keep doing seasons until y'all get fed up and excited that my boy got to do the first interview on here.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see, kind of compare notes with other people that are kind of in the same boat as you. I think that's going to be really interesting because I'm sure there's a lot of things that everybody can learn from each other. They just haven't had the opportunity, and unless you feel comfortable discussing these things, like to me it would feel like it would be a really hard thing to broach in just like a normal con situation, but like doing it in a setting like this where that's the point of this, and you know what you're getting into, you can say no if you don't want to, and then if not, we can just have an open conversation about it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and that's what I think people would be surprised about is a lot of authors, I'll say this, like when I do conventions, there's a few authors that we are like super transparent. Like anyone can come up and ask us how things are going and we'll tell them. We talk amongst ourselves. We're very transparent. And then some people aren't, and for various reasons. Some people, there's a lot of ego, I think, that gets tied up into this. It's like, oh, well, if that person sold more than me, I have failed in some way. And that's not the case. That's absolutely not the case. I'm trying to take the ego out of it and bring in, like I said, I've got people from all across the spectrum coming in.